Hello everyone and welcome back to another figure review. Today we're taking a look at the runner-up from Tamashii's reissue campaign celebrating Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary, the S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball Z Final Form Cooler. As I stated in my news video talking about the results of the reissue campaign, this one caught some of us off guard, and I think a lot of collectors were honestly expecting Broly to win it, the community to throw a fit, and that'd be all she wrote. Well, then they went and announced that Cooler here was also getting a reissue, and let me tell you, that opened up Pandora's box. I'll probably save my tinfoil hat conspiracies for the closing thoughts portion of the video, as to not dwell on it too much here, but I'll give you the TLDW. Cooler was the overall winner of the reissue campaign. Whether you believe Cooler was or not, it's hard to deny that this figure is one of the line's best figures. If you were to ask anyone what their top 10 S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball figures would be, I guarantee you Cooler would make most people's top 10, if not top 5, and has probably still maintained its status as one of the best figures in the line amongst collectors. So with that said, let's dive into the review and see if Cooler here is still peak S.H.Figuarts for the Dragon Ball line. Starting with the packaging, we have an image of Cooler pointing his finger at us like he wants us to join his armored squadron. The only real difference between the original and the reissue, much like the 15th anniversary Vegeta, is that this is labeled as the 40th anniversary reissue edition and has a little 40th Dragon Ball logo down at the bottom. In the background, we can see some manga inspired panels that once you turn the box to the right, you can see Cooler in various action poses. On the back side of the box, we can see Cooler in more poses, with the main image of Cooler showing him on his unique 40th anniversary stand that replaces the original image of him seen here. Here's a look at the right side of the box. With a quick look at the top. And bottom to round out the packaging. For the paint detail on Cooler, everything about this figure appears to be the same as the original release, as it should be, and I'm finding it really easy to say that this is one of Tamashii's best looking figures, hands down, bar none. And here's why. Cooler looks like he's been ripped straight from DBZ Movie 5, and I believe Tamashii did it faithfully, to the T. I've always held this idea that this form of Cooler looked similar to Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and since Toriyama was a bit of a movie buff, he might have taken inspiration from it. But that could also be a bit of a reach. What's not a reach, though, is his height. Cooler here towers over most of the other Dragon Ball figures in the line, outside of a few of the obvious ones like Broly, his father King Cold, and Great Ape Vegeta, just to name a few. Anywho, the purple used for Cooler is a nice deep color, with his blue gems standing out against the white parts of his body, which, speaking of, have line work in them to give them a textured look. And believe it or not, we've got some shading on the figure. I firmly believe that Cooler here is a reminder that a little bit of shading goes a long way, and we can see it in key areas like the biceps and thighs, which really helps to make the purple skin have more depth. I just wish the same could be said about the white parts of his head, chest, shoulder pads, forearms, and shins. Yes, they are highly detailed for those markings that I spoke about just a second ago, but I wish Tamashii had filled those lines in from the get-go. Thankfully though, Cooler does have some ink work around his mask, and the eyes are done in a nice solid red. Outside of that, I kinda wish the gems were done in a pearl finish like the original 4th form Frieza. In fact, I wish the entire Frieza family line had their gems done in a pearlescent finish, but I suppose beggars can't be choosers. At this point though, I feel like I'm grasping for straws trying to find something wrong with Cooler's overall presentation, because for a reissue, he faithfully captures the original run, and if it were the original release, all these arguments would still hold true. But for what we have in hand, I'm more than happy with it. Speaking of hands, let's talk accessories. Again, since this is a reissue, Cooler here is going to come with everything from the original release, plus that 40th anniversary stand to again commemorate the 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball. So with Cooler out of the box, let's take a look at everything he comes packaged with. 1 extra head sculpt, 3 extra sets of hands, and an extra set of feet. I wouldn't necessarily include the tail because, well, it's part of the figure. So for the extra head sculpt, here's what that looks like. There's only one instance where this face comes up, and it's when Cooler finishes transforming right before he tells Goku it's time to die, and he proceeds to ground and pound Goku into oblivion. Now, not including the fists that come attached, we get 2 pointing fingers that are slightly curled, 2 clenched hands, and 2 splayed out hands. For the extra set of feet, here's how those look. I won't bore you all with how these go on, but they are definitely easier to put on than full power Frieza. That's for damn sure. Lastly, the 40th anniversary stand. Much like the one included with the 15th anniversary Vegeta, it's here to commemorate the campaign while also being a nice display piece, seeing as there is no arm to go with the action base. So yeah, kind of a missed opportunity there from Tamashii. Now as for what's missing, nothing. This release is exactly what it's supposed to be. A reissue of the original plus that action base. But if this was the original, I would say an alternate head sculpt where Cooler is wide-eyed from seeing Goku push his supernova right back at him, or when he finally realizes he's on a direct course for the sun. Other than that, what more could this need? I feel like what you get is solid and the articulation more than makes up for it. Speaking of, let's go ahead and move on to the articulation for a more in-depth analysis. Alright, now that we're done talking accessories and glazing about the overall presentation of Cooler, let's talk articulation. So one of the things I have failed to mention up until this point in the review is just how premium feeling Cooler is in hand, especially when you compare him to something like the Daima Goku that I reviewed not too long ago. When you have both of these side by side, it becomes apparent which one had more budget, we'll put it that way, and wound up being a more premium quality feeling experience. Cooler here is a $90 figure and definitely feels of premium quality. In terms of plastic, he is a thick boy. He's using some very dense plastic, whereas Goku here definitely feels like a general release. This is a $38 figure that definitely feels cheap at times, especially when you compare him to the Full Power Frieza or even Cooler to Full Power Frieza. Full Power Frieza and Cooler are in that same realm of quality. They have thick plastics, they feel good in hand, whereas Goku, yes, feels good and is a quality figure in his own right, but just feels, again, cheap. So, real quick, Cooler was released back in 2021, Frieza here was 2024, and you can kind of see that they did borrow some things from Cooler for Frieza here, and they improved upon it. If you look at the midsection and then the pelvic area, you can see that it's very similar. The main difference between Cooler and Frieza is this right here. As I'm squeezing on Frieza's pelvis, heyo, you can see it flexing, whereas Cooler, it's hard plastic. Now, let's get Goku out of the way, and let's take a closer look at the Cooler of the three figures that we had up here. See what I did there? Yeah, that's pretty good. Starting with the head and working our way down, Cooler is going to be on a double ball peg that rotates that head around, or lets him rotate that head around pretty darn freely. Except, you know, the crown pieces of his head get in the way of this right here, or at least these get in the way. Which one would it be? Either way, when these pieces are up, you can't get them lower than this. Cooler can't lean side to side, so you kind of have to move the head ever so slightly to clear the shoulder pieces, and then Cooler can look side to side, no problem. Looking up is really good, and then looking down, keep in mind, you want to grab from behind here, not up here, where the crown is. You want to grab and push down. If you do it from up there, you take the chance of popping this off and paint transferring some of that red for the eyes onto the lower part of his brow. So just kind of keep that in mind. So, head and neck articulation, pretty solid. Now, these pieces that I was referencing earlier are pinned into the butterfly joint. So they move independently of the shoulder, which is very nice. So if you wanted to, you could get Cooler to T-pose greater than 180 degrees, no problem. But because they are on that butterfly joint, they do move with a butterfly joint. So that's what that's going to look like when you have them together and the arms actuated with the butterfly joint. Like, you cannot get Cooler to cross his arms, which is a bit of a bummer, but it's okay. That's what that looks like from behind. And then when you spread out the arms, you do get a little bit of gappiness. So just kind of keep that in mind. And you also, you know, show the pins, which is a bit of a bummer, but hey, it's okay. Now, for the arm itself, it does rotate a full 360 because of the ball and socket joint. And then the bicep is very snug on the right arm for me, for whatever reason. Like, the whole right side of Cooler is very snug. We'll talk about the rest of that in just a minute. And then over here, you can get that arm to rotate a full 360, no problem. You're going to have double jointed elbows. and then your wrist pegs are going to be ball hinges. The main issue I have with the ball hinges on Cooler here is that I cannot get them to rotate inside of their socket in the arm, so I'm just stuck in this position. I cannot get the hand to move that ball joint, so it's always parallel with the elbow joint. So I imagine if I soaked it in some hot water, I could fix that, but that's for a later date and when I'm done recording this review. Now, for the ab crunch, when you're not using the lower waist section, this is what this is going to look like. When you're using the waist, that's what it looks like. And then leaning Cooler back before we use the waist is like that. And then with the waist. It's pretty good, y'all. Really good. You do get some side-to-side movement up here. It's kind of hard to see. And then you do get some rotation up here as well. Down here at the waist is a ball and socket, so you can sit here and do this number all day long. And then, yeah, side-to-side rotation. Looks really good. Now, as I mentioned, hard plastics. This is not something you can sit here and squeeze, unfortunately. For the legs, I do want to stress that my right leg was extremely snug on me, so much though that I was afraid I was going to break the peg that the leg snaps onto, and I'm kind of glad I separated it. Let me show you what that looks like and why. So if you crunch Cooler far enough forward and then try to kick up with the leg, it will disconnect the leg from the socket from the joint. And if you look really close at that peg, look how small that is. A big honking figure like this is using that tiny little peg, and it was creaking really, really bad. We're talking like Taunts and Art Toys Warped Vengeance creaky and bad. Like that is no bueno. So I separated it after soaking this in some hot water, put a little bit of shock oil, just a small little dab to kind of lube it up, and now it does what it needs to do perfectly. Let me set Cooler back up and then do that number. Okay, so now that that's back in its socket, kicking up is 90 degrees. Kicking back is very limited because the buttocks is not made with softer plastics, but if you kind of finagle it in a way, you can get Cooler to kick out further, but it just looks really wonky and just doesn't look good. But you can get 180 out of Cooler. Upper thigh swivel is good. Double jointed knees are really good. And then the ankle articulation is pretty straightforward. Up is down, down is up. Yes. And then rotating, it just depends. Like this one rotates pretty freely, but if you rotate it too far, it pops out of the socket. And then for this one, I can't. Like it barely wants to move on me. You can hear, like, I don't know. It's just really tight in the socket, so it's not wanting to rotate like this one is. And even then, it would be better if it just had an actual axis that it could rotate on rather than moving inside of that socket like it does for Frieza. And then the last point of articulation for Cooler that we're going to talk about is the tail. It is segmented in two pieces. You have it where it docks into his butt, and then right here in the about midway through the tail, it is going to have pretty straightforward up and down motion. If you rotate the tail a certain way, you can get the tail to pose differently. So like right here, if I, instead of having it like this, where the thicker part is meeting up against the butt, if I rotate it, I get more range out of it. If I rotate it even further, I get more range out of it. So it just depends on what you are going for when you're posing this around. So now overall, is Cooler going to do what you want him to do? Yeah, for the most part. I think Cooler here is a solid articulating figure. It's going to take some finagling to get him to stand upright sometimes, depending on what pose you're going for. But I honestly think that this is one of Tamashii's best. Like, it is up there, y'all. It is up there with, well, name whichever figure. I think that Cooler here is... Ooh. See, this is why I dislike this. So I'm going to do this number. Nope. rotate it that way. There we go. So Cooler here is up there with some of Tamashii's more modern releases. For being a figure that is, at this point, 4 years old, it holds up. And some of y'all are going to like it a lot better than this right here. And I've sat here and said that Broly holds up by today's standards. But Cooler, really solid. Let's go ahead and move on to the comparisons, and then we'll wrap up the video. For the comparisons, here's Final Form Cooler next to his younger brother, Full Power Frieza, the legendary Super Saiyan Son Goku, Metal Cooler, Turles, and Broly. So for my closing thoughts on Final Form Cooler, I wish I had opened my original copy years ago, because God bless did I miss out by not having this amazing figure in hand sooner. And yes, I believe it is that good. And believe it or not, I did own 2 copies of the original back in the day, but parted ways with one of them. Why, you may ask? 'Cause you're a scalper. Well, no. If you're a longtime viewer of the channel, then surely you've seen my OG Broly review where I talked about how my friend got me into this addiction disguised as a money pit. A hobby. Well, I wanted to return the favor, and Cooler was his favorite movie villain. Now, since we're on the subject of Cooler and Broly, that leads me into my conspiracy theories as to who really won the 40th anniversary campaign. I honestly believe it was Cooler, simply because of how soon we got this figure in hand when compared to Broly, which is still 2 months out at the time of recording this video. Trust me, it wasn't a coincidence that he somehow quote-unquote won, given how heavily invested the community was with the releases from Beastides and Demoniacal Fit at the time this campaign was going on. I think that Cooler here was the clear and definitive winner based on Obi's comments from Rock Trollo's stream back in December where they were discussing who won. Though Obi didn't explicitly say who won, I have a strong feeling that it was implied. He went on to talk about how the organizer for the reissue campaign thought a specific figure was going to win, going as far as getting the original mold ready and whatnot, only to be disappointed when he found out that the figure he wanted to win didn't, as the actual winner won, and I quote, by a landslide. On Instagram, Obi did give us the opportunity to ask the question as to who truly won it, but y'all were too concerned about other lines to care, which is fine. I get that there are other lines than just Dragon Ball, but I still want to know, damn it. Now, I do have to play devil's advocate just a little bit here. If Cooler won it, why didn't his pre-orders sell out like Broly's? Maybe they weren't expecting the demand for Broly and had to do a second wave? Or maybe they preemptively upped the limit on Cooler given how quickly Broly sold out. Anywho, those questions are for another day. That probably won't ever get answered, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to Cooler. Do I think this figure is worth it? Not just yes, but yes. If you have the chance to pick this figure up, whether it's the reissue or original, do it. I was smiling ear to ear when I took this thing out of the box and finally had it in hand. The detail on this thing is amazing and the articulation is just as good. In my opinion, this is one of those complete packages when it comes to an S.H.Figuarts release, and I believe it is worthy of a spot in the top 5 figures of the Dragon Ball line. As I stated in my news videos talking about the reissue campaign, I hope that Tamashii will continue to do more of these polls. This would be a great idea to continue, as this shows that the community is very receptive to reissues of web exclusives that were supposed to be one and done. I mean, have you seen the aftermarket for some of these figures lately? I remember seeing Cooler at like 180 before the reissue, so this was definitely needed. And I know there are a lot of folks out there that would like another crack at the Ginyu Force. So please, Tamashii, if you're watching, keep doing this. And please, for the love of God, give us more figures of the movie villains. Like, where's Lord Slug? Suppressed Z Broly, Janemba, the androids from movie 7. Like, come on, Mata Okamoto, what are we doing? But that's going to bring us to the end of the review. I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for making it to the end. If you haven't already, kindly hit the like button and subscribe, as it helps me out and keeps the channel growing. Plus, I've got other reviews up and more to come. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on Cooler. Do you own this figure and love it? Or is he just one of your favorite characters in general? I'd love to hear it all. But as always, this has been Talib Reviews, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.